You know the Magna culture, right? Nobody works for me. You people work with me. I'm working for you. The history of mankind has always been dominated by the golden rule. Here's the gold makes the rule. But I don't want to be dominated by anyone. If I feel that strong, I should not be able to dominate somebody either.
Welcome back to Road to Economic Freedom, our podcast with Frank Stronach, founder of Magna International, perhaps one of Canada's most successful entrepreneurs, who is on his boldest and most important initiative yet, the Canadian Economic Charter of Rights. Today, we'll be discussing how we can mobilize Canadians to endorse the Economic Charter and get it fortified under the Human Rights Charter in Canada. Frank Stronach, as always, thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to be with you, Iwona.
So Frank, this is a logical, solution-based charter to get Canada back on a strong economic footing. How do we get Canadians mobilized to support this?
Well, that's the important question. Sometimes you could have the best ideas, but nobody listens, so you can't bring it forward, and it doesn't work, right? The basic idea in the Economic Charter of Rights is that the living standards for the working class in Canada is eroded enormously. I would say about 50%, right? Then over the last 50 years, right? So every year the living standard gets worse, right? We all know 50 years ago, a common class or a common working couple could buy a house, right? It's practically impossible now. They could not only buy a house, they could buy a car to send the kids to school and go on vacation, right? Mm-hmm. That was sort of, we had great living standards about 50 years ago, so we gone backwards, right? So basically I'm trying to wake people up and say, look, we got to do something about it because otherwise there's no future for...
Do you think we can get back to that time where people could afford a house and they could afford to go on vacation?
They did, 50, absolutely. It was known, right? I mean, absolutely.
But can we get back to that place?
Yes, we should go plus. We should go plus because we developed a lot of technologies, right, which makes life easier, and we can produce products quicker. Okay, so we should pay. Not only should we go improve the living standards, but I think if you put in the Economic Charter of Rights, Canadians could get economically free, because really, when you take a look, there's very few people which are economically free, a tiny percentage. And if you're not economically free, you're really a servant, okay? So who wants that? I don't want to be a servant, right? So, so I think if we put in the Economic Charter, I would, first of all, we would eliminate poverty. And I believe 2/3 of the Canadians would be economically free. Now let me talk, what does that mean? Or let me express what are the minimum standards of economic freedom. The minimum standards would be, and I've said that a number of times, and I will repeat it over and over, for the people which maybe haven't heard it, that it would sink in. The minimum standards would be if a Canadian woman or a Canadian man worked for 30 years, they should have enough saved up that they would own their own house or condo. It might be a small house, but mortgage free. And not only that they would own their house, but they should also have about $300,000 cash in the bank, so they can subsidize their old age pension and choose their own road to happiness for their remaining years, right? Those are the minimum standards. But how do you know, right? I would say now, or maybe there's only maybe 2%, maybe is economically free in Canada. There's something wrong with the system.
How do these 7 principles work together to provide an environment where Canadians can have economic freedom in the way that you define it?
The economic charter of rights is really not, there's no politics involved. It's just plain economic sense principles. Let's go quickly through. Principle number 1 is the economic charter demands that governments must balance the budget. Okay, that means they cannot borrow. Furthermore, they should pay back the debt. It's the debt is so much that you can't, that it would take many years, but I'm saying 20 years we should be able to pay back the debt.
How does balancing the budget and reducing the debt affect the daily lives of Canadians?
Well, we have to see how can we be more productive. We are not productive for the simple reason. Yes, society came a long way in many things here, right? But we still, when we look back in history, right, we had, call it the caveman, then came the hunter and hunted, and then came the kings and the servants, and now we have bosses and unhappy employees. So the very thing is, what do we do that employees will become happy? Employees would be happy if they can feel that the playing field, the economic playing field, is fair, right? But it's slanted towards the rich and special interest groups, right? So if we, and again, I mentioned now that when I created Magna, right? Magna International, right? I built it up from a garage up. I was the only employee, up to 180,000 employees, and
Incredible.
34 different countries, over 400 factories. But when I put in the economic charter for Magna, right, in the early 80s, and when I put in that the foremost principle in our economic charter was we have predetermined what we did with the profits. So 20% of the profits went to the shareholders. 10% of the profits went to the workers over and above their wages. 6% of the profits went to management. 7% of the profits went to research. Research is the foundation for the future. And 2% went to charity, right? So when I put in that economic charter, our profits went up 40% the first year, 100% the second year, 200% the third year. So I've proven when you let workers participate in a tangible way, that they get a portion of the profits. You release an energy of undue proportions because the employees starting to think.
So how does that translate to citizens of Canada when we talk about bringing in an economic charter into our great nation? How does that mobilize Canadians to begin to empower themselves and...
Well, the citizens of Canada are made up of kids, students, then working class people, elderly people, but the key is, and the funny thing about that is that all politicians, doesn't matter what party, all politicians agree, including the business people agree, if the economy doesn't work, nothing else will work. If the economy doesn't work, you cannot feed the hungry people, you cannot look after the most fragile people, the elderly, the sick, and the handicapped. But we do not talk about the most important subject, the economy. The economy, the economy, the economy. So I'm trying to bring that forward and say, look, we gotta really talk about the economy. We gotta know the economy is driven by 3 forces. Smart managers, hardworking employees, and investors. The message I want to get across loud and clear is that without workers, we can't make a profit. So that's why I'm saying, look, we gotta let them participate. And we change their attitude, we change their mind, we change there's such a huge potential.
So this is also, as you say, a revolution of the mind, bringing in, what do you mean by that?
A revolution of them. Basically, we got to be careful. We're not preaching to take away from the rich. We are not destructive revolutions like happened over the years, right? When people were hungry and so you had destructive revolutions. We're not saying that. We're saying, look, we can do it in an orderly way, in a civilized way, that we change the system. We gotta. So let's start. I started out we must balance the budgets because we know, every housewife knows she cannot spend more monies than what her husband brings in. Okay, or like nowadays, sometimes the husband stays in the house and the woman works, right? The same thing. If the husband spends more money than what the woman can earn, they wind up in a poorhouse. Okay, that's a fact. Another fact is, if a farmer cannot spend more than what he gets for his crops, otherwise he loses the farm. They know that. And every small business person knows, if they spend more than what they make on profits, then they lose, then they go bankrupt. Okay? And we have examples where countries gone bankrupt, right? When they go bankrupt, then there's a lot of stringent rules, which are very, very cumbersome, right? But we have examples.
Do you think Canada is on the way to bankruptcy?
Well, Canada has a lot of resources, right? Minerals, oil, and so you could sell that to richer countries, right? But that means you're selling the future of young Canadians, right? So we should try to exploit that for the purpose of to improve the living standards of the Canadian working class. That's what the economic chart is, to improve the divide now between the very rich and the working class gets bigger and bigger. It's never been as high as now.
No. So with the economic charter, we can sort of revive the middle class, and
we can revive, yes, and yes, it'd be difficult one way or the other, because I believe we had in a major recession. Okay, but
you think it's going to get worse than it is now? Most people can't even afford their food bills, not to mention afford a home.
You know, when you listen now and when you talk to municipalities they are left with the burden, right? In Ottawa, the most problem is with the national government, right? Within Ottawa. But there, the bureaucrats get paid, doesn't matter what it is, and everybody up there works for Ottawa, right? The donut maker, the dry cleaners, the street sweepers, they all, but the rest of Canada is affected, right? Okay, so I like to tell the municipal leaders, right, the mayors and the councillors, look, we got to sit down, we got to talk about it. What can we do to change Ottawa?
What role do the municipalities, or what role can the municipalities play in having the economic charter fortified? Because wouldn't that be on a national, on a federal scale, getting it fortified under the Human Rights Charter? So where do the municipalities fit in?
But the municipalities, they know they're aware, because they got to feed the hungry. They have soup kitchens, they got food programs, right? And
they're the closest to the people. They're affected by.
They're the closest to the problem. Okay.
Yeah.
So that way, so it's maybe a little easier to make the mayors and the councillors aware. Look, we need an economic charter of rights, because this happens over and over and over again, right? And if they put the pressure on, on the politicians, on the federal politicians, we need an economic charter of rights. The government must be restricted in some areas. The government must be restricted from accumulating debt. So we must have balanced budgets, right? So that's and then the government's they have no business in small business. Let small business be alone. We gotta free them. Okay, so those are the two major things. Create no debt, or slowly start paying, eliminating all the debt, and get out of free up small business.
Yeah, small business has always been the backbone of this country, and we're losing a lot of our entrepreneurs. Is there a way that we can change the grounds that we have for small business to make it a fertile opportunity?
Yes, that's correct. That small business has always been the backbone, not only of any country. Small businesses are very important, right? But as when we take a look, if a farmer hasn't got seeds, he cannot grow any crops. Okay? If a country has got no skilled labor, they cannot produce any products. And we got to realize, when you import more and more and export less and less, your living standards will deteriorate. That's what happened to Canada. We import more and more and export less and less. And
but how do we compete now with the cheap imports, and when we're struggling to build up a skilled labor force?
That's why we need an economic charter. The economic charter, and the number 6 principle is that in high school, the high school should end at grade 10, in grade 11 and grade 12. The students should be exposed to the trades. So I believe this is great for the students. They would accumulate extra knowledge, okay? And it's the more knowledge you have, the greater your earning potential, right? And so it's a win for the students, it's a win for society, because we can't fix things anymore, we can't build anything new. So it's a very important that we focus. We gotta reignite that we have skilled labor.
Even then, though, if we do reignite skilled labor, how do we compete with the cheap imports we're bringing in?
No, we can compete. And I have many examples we're quoting here, because you have a lot of automation and robotics. The only reason why our products get so expensive is we have too many regulators, And let me again give an example, right? When we look back 50 years ago, when the first computers came on the market, the slogan was, if you got one of those computers, you could eliminate a total office floor in a high-riser. When you look around now, I see 20 times more office buildings in all the cities of the United States and Canada, right? There's more office buildings. What do they do in office buildings? They don't make any products, okay? So it's regulations and financial transactions. So we gotta focus to make things. That's a great urgency. There's still.
Do you see that's where the future of Canada lies, in manufacturing and bringing manufacturing back?
Yes, it's manufacturing, producing products, right? Okay. The more you import, the less you export, the more the living standards will sink. Okay, that's what happens. So, but we have to address it. We have to fix it.
And so, the Canadian Economic Charter, it's a grassroots movement. How do you define grassroots?
grassroots is, it should be easily understood, and it should be beneficial to the working class, because the working class is, you have maybe 95% is part of the working class, right? Okay. And or even more, right? And maybe 5% to 2% call it the financial elite.
So how do we mobilize people to get behind
Well,
this?
we mobilize them, that we try to point out that we have programs which we show on television. We gotta tell them, look, talk to your neighbor about the economic charter. Keep talking about the economic charter of rights. So every person's got to know, every worker, look, we need an economic charter of rights. If our living standard's going to go up, it's via the economic charter of rights. Politicians can't improve the living standard. They've proven it for the last 50 years. Every year it's less. So we gotta, and again, I know most of the politicians, most of them are pretty good guys, but they're trapped in the system. Especially when young politicians say, gee, when I am elected, we really want to put in some great things in the Canada, so there's a future. But the older politicians say, you can't do that. You can't say that. We won't be elected. It's something new. And if the other party gets elected, they're much worse. So it's just a name calling. It's just one party is trying to say, look, they are so bad. Okay? So that's the dilemma. We got to break that cycle. That cycle drags us down in the sewers.
But we've been caught in this system for so long. How do we break that cycle?
Well, that's the thing. There comes a breaking point. Like everything has a breaking point. If we as people don't correct it, nature will correct it. But then it would be very severe. Very severe.
So how do we push Canadians to not be so apathetic and to get involved?
Well,
to help break the system.
We try to everybody. If he hears about it, should be like call it a pyramid selling scheme, right? It's the economic charter. Like everybody's got they should be aware of that. Economic charters of rights would improve the living standards. It would eliminate poverty, and furthermore, for the greatest amount of people in Canada, they would become economically free. That's what it's all about, because 2/3 of Canadians want to work. They want to be economically free. It should not be given, right? You got to work, but it's got to have a chance that you get, right? Right now, there's no chances. People have a chance to be economically free. Right? Do you want to be a servant? So basically, I'm trying to wake up your servants, right? You're not economically free. Because the very rich don't want you to see that you're economically free. The very rich, they call it, the society has always been dominated by the golden rule, whereas the gold makes the rule. Now then you see the rulers no more. The rulers might be in Hawaii, they might be in Beverly Hills, they might be in Monaco, but they're there. They don't want to share the profits with the working class. Okay, but still I'm saying we should not take away from the rich. I'm not preaching that.
You still believe in capitalism?
Yes, I believe, yes, but capitalism needs some harnessing. I believe in capitalism for smaller companies below 300 employees. I believe let them be free, let them operate under the free enterprise system, like which America got greater 50, 60 years ago, and Canada, right? Let them operate under the free enterprise system. The free enterprise system, basically, if an entrepreneur starts out, he's got to realize he's got to pay the people which work harder and smarter. He's got to pay more. Maybe a special bonus, or could be maybe a profit sharing program, or an equity participation. But look,
Do you think that's a formula entrepreneurs can use to grow their business?
yes, that's the way. That's what you have to do if you want to start and want to grow it, right? But you don't. The last thing you want to do is you want to have call it governments tell you how to run your small business. Okay, let's get rid of that. I'm saying over and over again, governments have no business to be in the small business. Let small business be alone. Let them create things.
If we allow small businesses to, as you say, if we unchain small business in Canada, do you think that can be a catalyst to getting the rest of the principles fortified as an economic charter?
Small business is basically, they hold the key to Canada's future. So I'm trying to tell small business, first of most of you have kids, you know, you love your kids. That's why, and I think most Canadians love their country, right? They want to do something, but they're frustrated because it's nothing is done about it, okay? So we gotta, in a civilized way, we gotta wake up the thing. We gotta wake up the politicians. We gotta wake up on the national level, on the provincial level, on the municipal level. Okay, we cannot keep on going like that. And again, we're not preaching fire all the bureaucrats. We say no, have a hiring freeze. Okay, have a
So there's no chainsaw approach here.
It's no chainsaw approach. It's a civilized revolution, right? It's look. If a family has a problem, they can't solve it by being radical. Logically, you think about it and say, X, 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 you should do. So the same thing holds true, right? And they have proven they built a company which, you know, it just hasn't been done before, right? From a one-man show to 180,000 employees, right?
Worldwide.
So I'm trying. I've accumulated so much wisdom, right? I want to leave that wisdom for the younger generation, right? Okay.
And that wisdom sits in the economic charter.
The wisdom is embedded in the economic charter, right? Wisdom plus common sense plus experiences, right? Okay, so we gotta, so we should start. I would like to see, we gotta promote. If you live in a municipality, step forward and say you would like to be part of a committee which would like to give a presentation about the economic charter at City Hall. So everybody could be, you don't have to be elected, right?
So the average Canadian can go to their municipality and
the average Canadian should be in touch with here. You know, you're the national director. We have a number of key people which are involved, right? They should be in touch with the thing and say, let's get a committee of we call them the economic charter ambassadors. Have a committee and get a hearing at City Hall, right? But you gotta understand, you gotta study, but it's easily understood, right?
So what's the best way for the average Canadian to spread this message? Is it going through the municipalities? Is it talking to small businesses? Is it talking to your neighbors? Is it all of it together?
Yeah, it's, I have, but the program isn't that old, right? It's about a year, what thereabouts. So I spent a lot of time in Ontario, around Toronto, but it's, I think we got to fly maybe we should visit all provinces and fly to the Halifax, or fly to Vancouver, to just all the big cities and try to spread the news and say, look, I'd like to talk about the economic charter. And so it's a question, people have to be aware of it. The message is so simple. So all what I'm saying is, if you let workers participate in a business, then you make more profits if you share. If it be small, you share with them, be bonuses or profits or equity. There's many ways how to share, right? But when the companies get larger than 300 employees, then the law would say a portion of the profits gotta go to the workers.
And do you believe this for all large companies? So companies that are coming in from the US?
I'm not preaching that. Because, you see, I couldn't do it with Magna. Like I had maybe 100,000 shareholders, right? Okay, so it changes if a radical change, right? It wouldn't be the best. So I'm saying when small companies growing above 300, then first of all, the entrepreneurs and the owners would know, look, we make more monies.
They'll see the value of it.
Yeah, we make more money so you let the workers participate, right? Large companies, they could do it step by step and call it on their own. The government should not have a thing to say you gotta share the thing here, right? Okay.
How do small businesses help promote this? Because this seems to be of great value to small businesses.
Small business should be smart enough if we band together. If we band together, then we could bring about, small business should not be paying a business tax. Okay, but they won't get it because nobody's listening to small business. Okay, and the organizations which they have never really, nothing new came ever forward from the Chamber of Trade or whatever. There's never any. There's the same thing they were 50, 100 years ago. Okay, so we got there is people always take a look and say, how I'm affected by that, or what's in for me.
Exactly.
Okay? But what's in for small business, because they are the backbone, that they would make more monies, they would leave, they can grow, okay, and there's a future for their kids, right? So small business, we gotta get, look, if you set them free, right? Okay, and especially for startups, right? Sometimes the startups it's so complicated that you can't get out of the door and start something, right? We gotta open the doors and encourage the entrepreneurs. When I started out, I said, "There's nothing to it, I just do, Okay, I worked and saved some money, bought a few used machines, rented a small building, and out I went hustling. I went out to factories and said, I'm very good in solving problems. If I can't solve them, you don't have to pay me. But obviously I solved some problems because after 1 month I hired somebody, after a year I had about 10 people, after 2 years, 20.
Do you have a message to small businesses about the economic charter and why it's so important for them to get behind it?
It really, you gotta be observant. You gotta know if somebody is smart, one of the workers, and hardworking and wants to do. You gotta encourage them and say, look, if you do well, I share with you.
But how do we get small businesses to band together to get this fortified?
We try to spread it on television and the media and via the new modern techniques now to get information out to the people, right? We gotta use that, right? The internet, etc., etc.
So it's about educating Canadians on an economic charter.
It's educating, but it's an easy education, right? For small business, look, if you band together, you automatically make more monies.
Well, that's a great message, and I think all small businesses can get behind.
Every business said, look, Now I got a chance to, I got no regulators breathing down my neck and preventing that I can do this or that, right? Get going, and be an entrepreneur. You love the country. Let's save the country, right? We got to do that.
We need to work together. We need to band together to save Canada.
Work together. Small business should band together.
Thank you, Frank.